Blackballed.
What is up, everybody? My name is James D. Fiore, and this is Blackballed. I have a particular fondness for these episodes. I think I have maybe 8 or 9 in total. And those kinds of episodes are the ones where we get to speak for the first time on Blackballed with an ex-member of the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church. Because I gotta tell you, for all of the uniformity that this cult has in the way that the localities are set up and all the rules that prove that the brethren male have no self-esteem, there is a significant difference between all of their stories of when they excommunicate. There are overarching similarities, like the doctrine of separation being utilized against him, couldn't see your family. But there are, the interesting thing is I didn't think they'd be this diverse of a group. Their personalities, what they went through, how they're sort of translating that experience into their life today. So with that in mind, I'd like to welcome our guest today, and her name is Anne Hamilton. Anne, how are you?
Hi, James. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Good.
So I like to start these interviews out where I'm very predictable. because I find the following question probably the most fascinating, and that is, and we'll get to all the other stuff, but I'm curious, just as a sort of to capture the entire thing. When you look back at the person who was all in for the Plymouth Brethren philosophy and the person you are now, do you recognize yourself, or is it just like a total transformation?
Mostly, yeah. It's a transformation, yes. But in saying that, from the age of 13, I had doubts about not just the brethren, but about the Bible, about the belief system in general. But yeah, if I look back, well, it's almost 10 years since I left. And if I look back, can I recognize the person? No, I have changed a lot. Yeah, I've changed a lot.
Does it take, and this is subjective, I guess, but did it take you a little while to come to grips with, you know what, I guess I was in a cult? Like how long did that realization take, or were you still in it when you had that realization?
No, definitely not. When I left, I would say it didn't take me that long to realize, but it would have been about a year.
Wow. Yeah. That decompression time must be like I don't know, would it be a roller coaster? Would it be numb? Is it like Truman's World where you get out of the bubble and you're like, oh my God, there's a whole other world out here? Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's just crazy. And you know, you talk about realizing you're in a cult. It's when you step outside and you look in and you go, what? Yeah. Did I do all that? You know, I was just saying to a partner earlier, I remember saying to my mum, you know, about after I left, I said, Mum, when you step outside and look in, you see it for what it is. And she didn't disagree with me. All she said was, why did you step outside?
Yeah. Wow. That's the weaponization of faith that I like to talk about once in a while. The utilization of certain concepts that are draped in a language of religiosity that make people think illogical things just basically for the fucking sake of it because someone said have faith or something like that.
Yeah. And you know, and I think of my mom, and I'm not saying that she, you know, she hasn't got a faith, but for her, you know, she's had a happy marriage, and you know, it's not been a difficult life in a sense as a brethren woman, I suppose. And I sort of understand that it's easier for her just to fit along with it, you know.
there is one common thread that I have kind of noticed is that some ex-members recall being kind of perfectly happy, like almost like an ignorance is bliss sort of happiness. But for others, that is not their experience at all. And can you just tell me, this is going to be a broad question, but can you tell me, how old you were when you remember something that you're like, well, this isn't right. What's happening here? And then the years that followed and what that experience was like.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, like, as a child growing up, it was a fairly happy childhood, but there was this underlying fear with me. And that was from about the age of 4 when I first heard the words, the rapture. And that fear, yeah, I'll never forget it. There was so many sleepless nights from the age of 4. And even after I left about the rapture, because I never actually felt ready. Like they kept saying, "Are you ready?"
It's so manipulative. It's what all the televangelists use too.
Yeah.
As a primary weapon to convince people to part with their money, I guess because they think Jesus is like really concerned about inflationary rates and and what the legal tender of each country. Like it doesn't make any logical sense. Why would an omnipotent being care at all about money? Like even me saying that out loud, I feel stupid just for
yeah, exactly, yeah.
Stellar point, that brave comment that I just like.
Yeah.
Again, weaponization of faith. Okay, so sorry. So I'm gonna backtrack again. So how old were you, and then where were you, by the way, exactly, and how many people inside your locality?
Okay, so I was born in Northern Ireland, and I was part of Belfast as the locality.
Also, Northern Ireland, also known as the most stable part of the United Kingdom. Which is not really
wasn't quite like that when I was growing up.
You're probably extraordinarily tough.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. But I've witnessed a few bombs in my time as well. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, our family were sort of thought of as a bit special, I suppose. So my great grandmother is sister to one of the men of God, JT Senior. So my grandpa and the JT Junior, who I would say made it into more of a cult, were first cousins.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So yeah, we were in a locality of around 250, 300.
Okay. That's just enough size. That's just a big enough size for politics.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's a lot. Well, my grandpa was a leader for many years, until he died when I was just 7. And then it was my dad. So yeah, that made it a bit of a. You were always a bit on the outside of the group, if you know what I mean, of young people. But then I tended to be a bit of a rebel, so I was always sort of
That's good. You weren't susceptible to the, I guess, cultural underpinnings that was basically women are second-class citizens, right? Like you sound like you had an instinct to be like, well, wait a second.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean,
why is that fat drunk bastard worth more than me? I don't understand.
Yeah, there was definitely, and the not being allowed to talk to the opposite sex. I definitely broke those boundaries.
Well, God bless you.
Well,
there must be some moments, like sometimes I like to see if I can find a little kernel of positive something outside or inside the brethren. One time I told Richard, I'm like, not for nothing, but brethren kids seem very polite. I'm sure it's because of a lot of horrible things, but nonetheless, Jesus seems like a winning strategy, and I don't do that because I'm not a believer, and I also don't hit my children because I'm not a monster, and so I literally have no leverage at all.
At all.
This is like the first generation, because the generation below us probably smacked a little bit, spanked a bum or something. And my generation, we were hit with belts. fucking like wooden spoons and stuff. I'm just curious what it is, like how it's looked at by inside, and then when you get out and you look in,
As a child, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like visiting. Cheryl said something once, Cheryl Hope, on a podcast where she sort of likened the journey that she took from where this all started and the police report and all of these different things that she had never done before that she had thought of doing for years. And it was like, it was an experience for her that I think shaped her. I find her to be like, her personal growth is just like night and day between like her confidence and frustration. And every time she drops an F-bomb, I'm like, oh, she's good. She's
yeah, yeah. No, when you listen, if you listen back to that first podcast where she talked, the difference in her now, and I think writing my book is actually seeing it in black and white and actually going, I went like, this is what actually happened, and it's just strengthened me to go, I'm not scared of them. I just want to. Would
it make it easier if I asked you to like sort of start at the beginning if we're going down that sort of facet of your life as a childhood, being victimized at the hands of adults? Can we, venture into that?
I'll say, like, my dad and my parents weren't abusive in any way to us as kids. But I didn't even think about it until Cheryl was talking to me recently about, child abuse, child sexual abuse. And I remembered this old guy that used to chase us. We were probably from 10 up to sort of 16, chase us to kiss us.
Wow. Well, how old was he?
How old? Oh, he was he was in his late 50s at that time.
Oh God. Yeah.
Yeah, and
really inconspicuous. Just an old man chasing children. Like,
yeah. And he would pinch, if he walked past a young woman, he would pinch her bum.
Oh, so he was Italian.
Sorry?
I said, oh, so he was Italian. I'm just kidding. We don't pinch. We smack and be like, what? It was that guy over there. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. In a way, I was sort of preserved from that a little bit, I think, because my dad was a leader.
Yeah.
And he was sort of keeping an eye out on that type of thing. But I had I don't really understand why, but I had a fear from a very young age of men. I was quite happy to play with the boys and flirt with the boys, but I had a fear of men.
Well, that just could be like evolved instincts, because we're kind of awful people. You know what I mean? Like every time someone said, that's a really nice man, I know there's some slack being cut, like, okay. But no, my sister had the same thing. She like, and it was kind of cute when she was a young child, up until the age of 5 or 6, she was like, I don't want to be around men and I don't want to hug Uncle Bill.
Yeah. That's exactly it. Yeah. Uncle Desmond would say, come and sit on my knee. And I'd be going, I don't want to sit on your knee.
Do you know what's interesting is that I know a lot of people who experienced trauma when they were children, and there seems to be kind of like two camps. Okay. The camp that I belong to is we are at a children's birthday. This is me talking to myself in my head. Yeah. We are at a children's birthday party. Under no circumstances will there even be a way to misconstrue some sort of weirdness with a child.
Yeah.
And that's it. If a child wants to hug you, you go like this, right? Like, I do that for the benefit of the other parents, right? I try to make eye contact with them, like, oh yeah, like I want to make sure everyone's fine.
Yeah.
And then there's other people that are like, well, I have to stand up for the child that I once was, and geez, be the most affectionate person ever with children. And I'm like, I don't know if that's a good strategy. It's a tough world, right? Yeah.
Physical, although like my uncle would have asked that, physical affection within the brethren isn't a thing really. And I feel something that's really noticeable and I feel awful about is I don't ever remember actually saying to any of my children, I love you.
Oh, that's just Britishness, isn't it?
Is it?
We were talking about that, about COVID, about how, like, I said to someone, I'm like, yeah, COVID is like everyone's isolated. We're all in our homes. we never see our families. It's like we're fucking British now. Like we're kind of relieved we're not seeing our families, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's I find it fascinating the fact that these little localities are small in any sense of the word, because it's these are tiny little enclaves. But then, but the business model of the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church that is applied to every locality is multi-level marketing.
Certainly not. Yeah,
it's multi-level marketing meets a Ponzi scheme, meets Sunday mass at church where they just say, "Give me your money" for some reason, and that is it is blatant. As far like, to me, it's completely blatant, and I don't understand why it is allowed to exist. I just don't.
No.
You know what I think it is? I think the thing that makes it the most absurd is what protects it, and that is the belief in a God.
Yeah. Yeah. That is absurd. Yeah.
Okay. Let me talk a lot less. Let me talk a lot less, please.
All right. No, it's just so at the age of 13, I think. Like I say, I just doubted the Bible. I doubted everything. It wasn't just the brethren. And
was
then
there a trigger or a tipping point or something?
I couldn't believe that those stories were true.
Oh, you mean the talking snake and the worldwide flood because God got angry? Yeah.
And I kept bargaining. I kept having bargains with God. If this is all true, then do this or do that. And then I'll believe it. And I would keep going on like that. And then at the age of 16, me and two of my friends sort of consciously talked about leaving. Well, I was only 15 actually. I had no money. I was still in school at that point. We just couldn't do it. We just couldn't bring ourselves to even hurt our parents in doing it.
And what was the main reason that you wanted to leave? Like, other than the biggest reason, which is that it's a cult and oppressive women, but was there?
I suppose because we went to normal school, so it's not like the kids in there now where they don't see the outside world. We did see the outside world, and I did live as close to it as I could. I tried to have friends. Obviously, it was difficult because you had to go home for lunch and all that stuff that you're excluded from. But I wanted what they had. I wanted what I saw in the outside world.
Yeah. Men without haircuts that are parted at the side, for example.
But anyway, we decided not to.
One thing I heard you say was that you were arranged to be married, and you met the person when you were 17 and he was 13?
No, he was 18.
Oh, 18. Okay. Oh, there goes my child groom joke. But yeah, I thought that. But still, like, it's very I don't know. Is that Hindu? I don't know.
I wouldn't say it was arranged exactly. So I decided, okay, I can't leave. So my only other option is to get married. And there wasn't really anybody in Northern Ireland that I could marry.
If marriage is the better choice, then that other thing is awful.
Well, I thought that. That's what I thought.
Is there a visa involved? No, just marriage? Oh.
So we met. He was 18, I was 17. We met at one of these 3-day meetings. Have you heard of those?
I pretend I haven't, because I think my audience would be interested in listening to the actual blueprint of how the scam kind of works. Right?
Well, I suppose they were actually used as a way to often for young people to meet when they got to marriageable age.
Oh.
But sort of because I had, like, I suppose in their eyes, turned a corner, and I was being a bit more committed. It was my turn to get an invite. It was my first 3-day meetings, which are coming from Northern Ireland, we left on the Thursday, and then you had Friday 2 meetings, Saturday 2 meetings, and then Sunday your 4 meetings.
Okay, give me what would it look like? You go to this 3-day meet, you get there. What are you looking at? Who's talking? What are they talking about?
Okay, well, the first thing is you don't stay in a hotel, obviously.
Obviously, you might run into a worldling, right?
Yeah. So you stay with other brethren. Yeah. So the house is full of all these other brethren, and then I can't even remember who it was that was doing the talking, but yeah, then there's a special brother that's assigned. Sometimes it's actually like the man of God, but this time it wasn't. And you
The
have to
man of
sit and
God, you
listen
mean
to
Bruce
him.
Hales. Bruce Hales is the
Yeah.
man of God. Yes.
I got quite quickly distracted in those first meetings that I went to. And that's where my eye wandered and saw this guy that I thought, hey, yeah, he looks all right.
Oh yeah. Was it like, ma'am? Did he give you a ma'am look? How you doing?
Yeah, that is what it's like. If you like somebody, to find out if a young man liked you, you had to sort of count how many times he did a little smile or winked at you across the meeting room.
A young man like me? Oh, I would just walk. Oh, I thought you said like me. I was like, I'll just walk across the room winking at all of them and just see if something happens.
No, not you.
I
Anyway,
got the same bonnet. Oh, yeah, that's right.
so yeah, I looked at him and yeah, we started the winking smiling game, if you like. that was
Hey, I don't think you're the ones that started it, but okay, you know. That sounds that sounds like a happy moment though. Like isolated by itself.
Yeah, it was, yeah. So we weren't really meant to talk, but me being me, I went up to him after one of the meetings.
Oh, bless your heart. Yes. Go on, please.
It didn't matter that he was 6 inches shorter than me.
The story gets to keep better and better because I'm 5'6". Please go on.
Well, he's 5'3". He's 5'3", and I'm 5'9".
Even I could bully that guy.
But that didn't put me off.
Yeah.
I thought, well, he smiled and winked at me, so he must, like.
That's so always the first two signs of someone really classy, Anne. Smile and wink.
So we had a little conversation with another guy. We weren't on our own. And as soon as the other guy went off,
was he a chaperone or was he just like...
No, he just happened to be there.
Oh, okay.
When I approached him, he was there. Yeah, when I went into my sort of flirting game,
Yeah. Oh, he was a hanger. He was like a Klingon and still scoping the scene before he was like, oh, she likes him.
Yeah. And then he walked off. And then, we couldn't possibly be seen talking to each other on our own,
Yeah.
So, and I never spoke to him. That was on the Saturday morning. And I never spoke to him again until he gave a note to one of the girls who I was staying with, to meet him around the back of the meeting room.
That's right. Yeah. Near Makeout Point or something.
So that was the second conversation we had.
That sounds actually kind of like old-fashioned and a little bit romantic even. Like it even has that built-in suspense. Like, well, I didn't see him until this time.
It was all very exciting. Yeah. So we met around the back of the room, hoping that nobody would see us because I was too young and he shouldn't have been talking to a girl because he couldn't afford to buy a house at that point.
What?
Yeah.
Sorry, is that a rule?
Oh yeah. That's a rule 9.
Rule 9, really?
No. Now that is a rule.
Oh, right. That is insane. I would be alone forever. Like I, just out of principle, I'd be like, I'm not transacting a house for a wife. That's crazy. Like,
oh yeah.
It might even like not compel, but influence bad husbands to treat their women like property if that is the exchange. This is like a dowry, but in Western cultures, a dowry looks weird. Like I don't know. I didn't know that until today.
Oh really? Yeah. Yeah. Oh my 3 sons that are married, all of them had to make sure that they could have, number one, afford a house and afford to keep a wife.
Can I ask you, are the women like, oh, you ain't got a house? Well, fuck you. I ain't going with you. But in a nicer way. Do they look at it like that?
Well, it was one of the first questions I asked him.
Well, coming from you, that's different because you're 5'9". You just have to walk up to him and be like, listen, I asked you a question. Did you carry him to bed ever, Anne? Did you like pick him up and carry him upstairs?
Anyway.
I want the audience, hold on. I want the audience to understand something. This is not an accidental, freewheeling kind of silly conversation. I told Anne before we went on air that I'm not sure, I don't know if I was this specific, but I kind of wanted to do, I watched the first 25 minutes of the podcast you did on the Get Alive podcast with Cheryl Hope and Richard and Carmen and I think Lane. And I watched some of it, and then I just was overwhelmed with this thought of it doesn't have to be, despite the fact of what you did experience and how serious it is and we things, it doesn't have to be really dark. And
No.
You struck me as a person that I could have the exact kind of conversation that we've had up until this point, which I think is kind of a first for me interviewing an ex-member. I am being a little bit more casual than usual. But I think it's the right choice. I think we were right before we went on air to kind of treat it like this. Because it's just, I can't take it anymore, man.
No, I was just going to say, sometimes, I can't listen to all the podcasts even because it's like a overload. And
I talk to rappers and hip hop artists just therapeutically as I'm coming down off of a brethren high. Yeah. And that's why I think I'm going to try to go for a little more like this. Anyways, now we're talking about how we're talking, which is always a mistake. But okay, are you able to fast forward to so you're married, and then where, I guess, like how long did it take before it started to break down from within, and then when you left?
Okay, so obviously when I married, he lived in Coventry, so I had to go and live in Coventry. You have to go and live where the man is. So I had to move countries, move cities, move localities. So I was 18. Yeah. So we got married like 10 months after that first meeting.
Okay.
We saw each other 6 times.
But it wasn't an arranged marriage.
Yeah. We saw each other 6 times for 1 hour a month.
Yeah.
Wow. Anyway. When did it start to break down? It actually, I suppose, was breaking down before I even married him. From my point of view, I saw some red flags.
You have that in common with the outside world. So,
yeah. But, everybody, I talked to my parents and everybody was like, I'm a sister, I think, as well. She was married. And they're like, oh, everybody has these doubts and it's, it'll all be fine, and the wedding day was close. And so, so I went on and married him. I suppose, looking back, there was I remember one time, which was in 2006, when I was definitely raped. I know that. But when I look back...
So you were definitely...
Rape. R-A-P-E. Rape.
Oh.
R-A-P-E.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said rip. I'm sorry.
It's my accent. It's my accent.
An awful word to make you repeat over and over again. That literally the worst that could ever happen. I'm sorry. Yeah. Go on.
But looking back, I think that actually happened a lot. But to talk about the breakdown, I suppose we didn't know each other. How could we love each other?
Yeah.
Did we ever love each other? For my part, I don't think I did ever love him because when I knew him, which was when I saw the first signs of the sort of person he was, I didn't come to love him.
Did you know that you were being assaulted in real time, or was the whole role of men and women so pronounced to you that you weren't even sure if it was wrong?
Oh, I wasn't sure it was wrong. I thought that was just the way it was.
That is one of the most poisonous aspects, eh? Like, it's just...
Yeah. That is one of the worst things, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, like I say, in 2006, when I woke up to him having his hand over my nose and mouth and raping me, I knew that was wrong.
Yeah.
And I went to my parents about that.
And what did your parents say? Specifically your dad, I'm curious.
My dad didn't say a lot, to be honest. It was more my mom just comforted me, but there was no question of taking me away from it.
See, that is the part of, that's how I know it's a cult.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? I don't know many fathers,
Mm.
and I see men inside the brethren in like one of three pools. Either they're part of the mechanism that makes it a really shitty place, or they're kind of like blind followers that don't really kind of know any better. And then there's young people. And that's sort of my very overly simplistic view of what
Yeah.
brethren men are like. It is like they have no idea what the outside world would do to them if the PBCC just disappeared and you got one of those guys just like, okay, now you work at IBM. Good luck in life, you know.
Yeah.
They'd be fired in a week, you know. It's so
Yeah. I mean, there's always this rule of parents should never interfere in marriages.
Is shooting my daughter's rapist interfering, or is it just cleaning the
Yeah,
porch?
exactly.
Do you know?
I mean, there was times when my dad would come round and have a bit of a conversation with him, and you know.
He had a conversation with him that didn't end in.
Oh no, just definitely a conversation.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so yeah, the breakdown of the marriage, I suppose, I don't know if there ever was a real marriage, if you know what I'm saying.
No, there wasn't. No.
Yeah. And obviously, no contraception. I was very quickly pregnant. So I had my first child at 19.
Hmm.
By the time I was 23, I had 3 children.
Wow.
And then I had a miscarriage, and then I had another 2 who were very close to each other. So it's like 2 families. So it's like 8 years between the first 3 and then the second 2. In 2003, 2003, for me, things just got to a head. It was, well, Bruce Hales had just come into power for a start, and there was a lot of shit going on there. And then, yeah, the marriage was just getting worse and worse. I had these 5 kids, 2 little ones with just a year between them. And I suppose I had a nervous breakdown, really. And
you had more than 3 kids. Of course you did. Like I'm having one right now, just being like, imagine being a father of 5. Like,
and I phoned my mom and I just said, I'm ready for jumping out the window. I can't do this anymore. I can't live with this man anymore. And my dad and mom, in fairness to them, they got in their car, they drove over to Coventry, they literally just picked me and the kids up and took us back to Northern Ireland.
Where it was safe.
Where it was safe.
Yeah.
When I got there, Mum took me to the family doctor, and I was basically just so, I don't really remember that summer. I was so drugged up.
How old were you in that summer?
2003. How old was I?
You're 20 then, or?
No. I was in my I was in my 30s.
Okay.
I had all 5 children by then.
Yeah.
And then after the summer was over, I was sent back.
Sent back from Northern Ireland back to the locality.
Yeah, back to Coventry.
And what was going on behind the scenes politically? Like, were you being, like, priestly visits were now imminent? Like, what was happening there?
No, it was all hush. Everybody in Coventry was just told I had taken ill.
Is that a Symington factor?
No,
is that a like?
This is Bruce Hales' time.
No, but what I mean is, like, because you belong to the Symington kind of family tree, so are you treated with a little bit more privilege than others?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah, probably a little bit.
My husband lets me speak in full sentences. I'm just kidding. I hate that aspect of it. I asked Cheryl the other day if there were any Latina brethren women, and she was like, "How could there be?"
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I went back, and then in 2004, it was decided that we would move as a family to Northern Ireland to be near my parents.
Okay, yeah.
So we moved, and I mean, I think my life did improve a bit. I hated Coventry. I hated Coventry as an outside city. I hated it as an inside city in the brother.
Yeah.
But the Irish are the Irish, you know, and they're
That's
just
right.
freer and more friendly and probably more alcohol involved.
That is so racist, Anne. I mean, come on.
Oh, sorry.
It's true, but it's still.
And I suppose the roles were reversed actually, because then he was trying to fit in, and he didn't fit in. You know,
Right.
he didn't have the Irish sense of humour. That's why we never really linked in any way. He hated it. He worked for my family, and he just ended up using me as an antidepressant, really, sexually.
If I can just like harken back to you and I first spoke on the phone, I'm gonna predict it was like May or June, something like that,
Yeah.
of this year. And you said something to me that really stuck with me. And you're not saying the same thing today, but I'm hearing a sort of cadence in your voice that I find to be generous towards your ex-husband. And what you said to me on the phone months ago was that, and I thought this was like beautiful in a way, and also I could not identify with it at all. When you sort of gave him a little tiny bit of a break because of how he was raised.
Yeah. I still do.
Yeah.
I'm not condoning what he's done, but the PBCC, these are the sort of men that they make.
Yeah. Yeah.
They make these men because of how they're taught, Coventry was very legal within the Brethren. You know, I remember the leaders standing up and talking about the women as usurpers of authority. And my husband would bang the table and say, be subject to me.
Wow.
Yeah. And
it's so absurd that,
yeah, it is.
that in 2023, that anyone would say that without immediately going, "Oh, I'm sorry, I just had a stroke. Sorry, guys, I didn't mean any of that."
Exactly, yeah.
So women are equals. Jesus Christ, like, were your husbands like? Did they have power just to like toss a look, and just like,
oh yeah, definitely.
you know what? I would like to have that power with my wife. I'm not going to lie. That would be a good power to have.
This is one of the things that I used to do with a look. So sometimes he thought my tops were a bit low.
No, it was just that he was a bit low.
And he'd look across the meeting room and he'd go,
I hate that man already. I do.
So yes, so that part of him as a person, I don't think he's a nice person. But the sexual side,
so you think he was shaped and influenced to be the kind of person that he was?
Yeah, I mean, in his household, his dad didn't even allow him and his brother to see their sister in her nightdress. That was, and he wouldn't let me put two little boys in a bath together. Yeah.
That is like alchemy level ridiculousness,
And then, and I think because there's not the normal dating of teenagers and all that, and this still applies now, there's a sexual frustration builds up.
Oh yeah, for sure. That they cite that as one of the reasons why, like for a while, people were like, pedophiles must target careers as priests, but they found that while that was true to a certain extent, a lot of people were not knowing how to place their sexual repression of being completely celibate for the rest of your life, right? Like, and it creates kind of people doing weird things.
And I think that was one of his things, was it gave him this warped view of the whole sexual thing, and it was all so it was so warped that he didn't have a clue how to look at it in any. But I think that he was worse than a lot, but I think it's a massive casualty among them.
Well, I was talking about this again last week with Cheryl and Richard about how since the Me Too movement, I have seen countless stories where a journalist or a media outlet will spotlight a relationship that two companies have with one another. If one of those companies has horrible press going on at that moment. Often these companies are think of like things like Chick-fil-A, right? Where they were like alleged to be anti-gay, and then Chick-fil-A was I sort of feel like the only untested strategy left for the Brethren to become a household name and for people to be like, wait a second, that is crazy, is to utilize these social issues and be like, why is the Ronald McDonald House pairing with a company that is transparently anti-gay and that is clearly designed to oppress women? Why would they want to be associated with that and start getting people to start thinking about that kind of stuff? I'm hoping people listen when I say that and start asking maybe their elected officials or whoever, just like the questions they need to.
But, there's you think of so many of the big stores who actually give money back into the Brethren.
It's just as absurd if you heard this on the radio. The Ronald McDonald House would like to thank the Church of Scientology.
Yeah.
If you don't see your relative, don't ask any questions.
Yeah.
Actual relative may be dead, right? Like they wouldn't do that. They wouldn't pair with that cult because everyone knows that they're a cult.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm telling you, the frustration that I have for the lack of appetite that media has on this is bewildering.
It drives me mad.
Yeah.
What is it? What do we need to do to get it?
I don't know. The Cheryl Hope interview was a sort of a pivotal moment for the show and for Cheryl and a whole bunch of stuff. And the weird thing about that is that if you take someone like Robin Doolittle at the Globe and Mail in Canada, who reported a ton of Me Too stories. She did a whole series called Unfounded about police investigations and this and that.
Yeah.
But she would often, and maybe I should not single her out for this. Like, broadly speaking, a lot of these media outlets would run a typical story that was like this. Anonymous person accuses famous man of sexual assault. No evidence, no police reports, no corroborating witnesses, no nothing, but it's front page news, right? This is what.
What is that?
Yeah, and it's like, okay, that's interesting. So inspired by that, I created a rule at the time. I think I can make some exceptions or whatever, but where it's like if you're, especially in Canada, if you're going to accuse somebody of sexual assault, that's fine. I'm not even saying I don't believe you. But you need to kind of have a police report as a Kevlar vest so that your critics can't come after you for something like that. And that was my only rule. But it was still much farther than the mainstream media had gone. And the mainstream media won't touch any of these stories. Not one of them.
Well, yeah. I mean, is it because they're scared of them, or is it because they're being paid, or
I don't know.
I don't know either.
Yeah.
I mean, I was in the Times, the Sunday Times, about 4 years ago, but they advised me to go anonymous, or I changed my name, I think.
Oh,
but,
really?
Yeah. But it ended up this tiny little bit.
Yeah, that's a signature move on the Brethren's part, is that every single decision that they make during the excommunication process is designed for them not to get bad press whatsoever. Right? Like they don't want people talking about it, which is why here at Blackballed, we are going to saturate everything with as many Brethren stories as we can, because
and I think, where you about making Bruce Hale famous, I think that's also, you have to, bringing up his face all the time.
Yeah, I've been doing that, but it's just I get nauseous when I see his face, because
just a bit, yeah.
It's like, excuse me, can you take a picture of a person that maybe you don't want babysitting your kids? Oh yeah, I got just the thing right here. There he is. Hey, do you like trucks? Like, I don't know.
Well, yeah, seeing his face takes me back to 2010, which was a pivotal point for me in leaving, really.
Yeah.
So he came to our little locality of Warren Point. Warren Point was only about 100 brethren.
Okay.
Anyway,
and do
he
people
came there.
faint? Are they like he's Liberace or Elvis? I mean, like, what do people? What is their reaction?
Okay, so this is me personally. I thought if I spoke to him, if he really was this person, and I spoke to him, everything would be solved. I didn't really think that, but I was doing this bargaining thing again, and
Yeah.
I asked for a meeting with him.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the marriage was such a mess. Everything was such a mess. Anyway, I asked for a meeting with him, which was refused. He had too many appointments, so I was assigned to sit at the end of a row, so that everybody waits till he stands up after a meeting, and so when he stood up, everybody stands up, and if you stand at the end of a row, you can hope that you might get a chance to talk to him.
Yeah.
Well, I had a gift because that was my way of. So I had this bar of chocolate, which was personalized. The wrapper was personalized, and it had a picture of Warm Point. Warm Point's a very scenic place, and I had a picture of that on it, and it was, I can't even remember what I put on the front. I don't know. Our beloved brother or something, probably.
Yeah.
Anyway, to stop him in his tracks as he was going out of the room, I handed that to him.
I'm quietly hoping right now it was a weed chocolate bar.
Here
we go, Bruce.
Should have been.
Yeah.
But he didn't even look at it. He passed it to his guy behind.
That is one of the repertoire that a snob will use. I can't, that no look thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And then he sort of looked at me and said, "What's your name?" And I told him. And then he asked my daughter, who was 10, he asked her name, and that was it. And I went, "This is just a man. He's no
Are you
more
surprised
than
that
a
the
man."
man of God didn't know these people's names?
Oh, when I left, when I told them it was all over, and they told him all about me, he apparently remembered me. Yeah, like.
Go ahead.
Anyway, that was sort of, from that point on, I started watching YouTube videos of people leaving cults and that sort of thing, like the Amish and that type of thing. I was very fortunate because my second son was he was a bit of a rebel, but he was also quite tech savvy. Okay. So he unlocked our computer, so there was no restrictions on it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
those are the stories that I love. I love the the 17-year-old that's like, "Fuck this place, man. Fuck this. I'm gonna go to this place."
We used to sit round the computer screen, watching Faulty Towers.
Oh, that's funny. Lane Admiral told a story on my podcast, I don't know, a month ago or something, about how Bruce Hale stayed at his family's home. And Lane was sleeping in the basement, and Bruce was sleeping directly above him. And because of the way that you think when you're inside, Lane took a pornography magazine and put it in the vent between the man of God and himself to see if Bruce would sense the sin. To which he did not, much to everyone's surprise. Except for Bruce.
He did not, yeah, exactly.
Which is just a clear example of how it makes you think. Like, the logic centers are there, but apply to a thing that's just
they are, but it's just strange. I mean, that time when he came to Warm Point, we were, like I say, it was a small locality and a small room. It was all on one level, not like some of the big rooms. And they even had like all the children sitting in the center circle.
Okay.
And it was likened to the children sitting at Jesus' feet.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's I have to try to be sensitive about the fact that if we lived in a world where no one ever said, "Oh, by the way, there's no Santa Claus. There's no Santa Claus." If everyone would just, there'd be people that believe in Santa Claus that were older, right? And they would have the body of evidence that exists for that is basically nothing except for stories. And they would have to come to terms with the fact that because we didn't instill it in them. Oh, by the way, that's why I'm sorry, I'm going to tangent here for a second. I think I created this technique, so I don't want my kids to believe in God. So when it comes time to talk about the Easter Bunny and Santa Claus and the Tooth
Yeah.
Fairy, I'm just going to throw Jesus in the pile, so they'll always associate him with those characters. And I think we're going to see good results. You know, I think
It's funny.
my son's going to become a priest because he's rebelling against me. You know,
I asked my partner the other day, actually, whenever you find out that Santa Claus wasn't real, were you not really annoyed with your parents? You know, you're not angry with them. No, not really. But like for me, it feels like I've been lied to for 44 years. Do you know what I mean? My parents started that, and it's like,
yeah, I thought stuff like that too. I was just like, what kind of bullshit is this? Like, why would you do this? And you know, we wanted to give you a magical childhood. Yeah.
I didn't
On
even
your
know.
throne of lies, mother.
Yeah,
You know?
I didn't even know that kids really did believe in Santa Claus till after I left, till 10 years ago. And I look back to my childhood when I was 5, 6, or whatever, going to school and telling the other kids, Santa Claus isn't real.
Yeah.
And they must have hated me.
And what a risky industry the mall Santa is, you know?
Yeah.
A drunk old man with countless children sitting on his knee. And
Yeah,
it's not a stereotype that Santa does those horrible things. They're probably too drunk, right? But and by the way, it's a tough job. I was a mall Santa for like 3 weeks in the Eden Center in Toronto. Yeah, I got it on a fluke. The guy wanted to go home. He's like, "Here, just take the job." And I was Santa Claus. It is emotionally draining, and you are super hot in that suit. But but it's really interesting. I got one child was like, "Santa," and I'm like, "Yes, my child," whatever. She's like, "I was wondering if you could bring mommy back from heaven."
Oh.
And I was like, Santa's crying. Like I'm trying to hold it together. And if I wasn't having the beard on, she'd see a quivering chin and like this weak ass man, you know, falling apart. But anyways, I would include Santa Claus as part of the Jesus motif, you know, and try to do it like that. If you don't mind me asking, do you how did you reconcile your own personal beliefs now that you're out?
Well, I'm not a believer. I am, I suppose, agnostic, I would say. You know, maybe there is something, but
that's just a polite atheist. Agnosticism is just polite atheism.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. I don't want to say that word, so I don't say it.
I was an arrogant atheist. I guess like going back 20 years ago to like maybe 10 years ago or something. I was like more of an anti-theist, you know. I was like, not only do I don't believe in God, but the very idea of one absolutely repulses me. I was like that idiot. I didn't talk like that, but you know, it's very interesting to see the belief systems that each individual excommunicated member has, because there are atheists and agnostics, and then there are like, you know, straight up believers. Like I talk to some people sometimes, and we go back and forth about their story, and then all of a sudden a very long Bible verse will appear out of nowhere, and I'm like, I don't know what to do with that.
No, I can't. If somebody starts talking scripture or anything like that to me, I'm immediately I just back right away. I can't deal with it.
I would like to have a rule on Blackballed where the only religious speaking that can occur has to be in tongues only. Right?
Yeah, it does. It always amazes me that people that you know are quite spiritual after they leave, or you know, Christian, or whatever. But I suppose it's just everybody's journey is different. For me, it was none of it worked for me. You know, I tried praying about it. I tried being good. I tried reading my Bible. Nothing worked. You know, it just didn't pan out how I wanted.
You know, that's not different from Catholicism, by the way. I remember I remember being in like grade 1. It was just after First Communion. I had a big crush on Andrea Schultes, who I ascertained was a big believer in Jesus, right? And I remember sitting in the church just kind of looking at everyone else. And then I did this once. I just put my hands up. And while I'm doing it, I'm looking at the light bulb, because that's the big spiritual thing that I was looking at.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't think this is doing shit. This is doing nothing. This is like
No,
there's something wrong here, and I was all upset, and I don't think I believed ever since. And it's
no, and maybe it is. I suppose people, it is. You have to believe it, don't you? And I don't think like I say, from the age of 13 at least, I just don't think I believed in any of that stuff. And so when I pray, it just seemed to bounce off the ceiling and back down. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a strange thing. And plus we had nuns that were like horror movie nuns, the kind. They would look like actual skeletons with like, tissues on.
Glided along as though they got wheels on their shoes.
Oh, they were awful. It was because they're sexually repressed too. It does things to people, right? Like they're married to, the only thing that they have going for them is that they're married to a husband that they've never seen. Not even once.
Probably never will.
Yeah, but the nuns in my school, I just have this one memory. Actually, I shouldn't blanket all the nuns with this, but Tony Heron, I believe his name was, and maybe I'm getting this wrong, but I thought he was Jewish. There was a Jewish person in our class, never went up for communion or whatever. And I don't think the nun knew that he was Jewish. And I said, Sister Hag face, whatever your name was, she was awful. She was horrible. I'm like, what happens to, and I just use Jewish people as an example, when they die? And she was like, oh, James, that's a very good question. Jews go to hell when they die. And I'm just like, I'm 13 and my moral center is crumbling and you're just sitting there smiling. This is crazy. And so there's that common thread in religion of what do they call it? Hatred of things, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So listen, I have no regrets how we did this podcast, but we hardly covered any of your life story. But do you want to do a part 2 sometime in the next 10 days? Because maybe we can do it like that. Well, this will be the LOLs episode. I'm glad we did it. You have no idea how grateful I am to have a conversation where I'm not like, will I have to do this so no one sees me cry? Like, just give me January, everybody. Just give me January.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But I really enjoyed this. I appreciate you coming on. I do want to have a second part. We could do like 5 parts with you, seriously, and maybe we should, because what you're doing now as well. Maybe we'll end on that. Can you talk a little bit about how you're trying to assist ex-members?
Yeah, well, I suppose my book is a big thing. It's for members in there, but ex-members as well. Just to give them that. Look, you can have a good life out here. You can.
Yeah.
And I just long that my kids will somehow, realize that they can make a choice. I was told I didn't have a choice. You do have a choice.
Yeah. And
you can choose life. Choose life. Don't choose death like I almost chose. Choose life. Freedom. Right. Yeah.
That's right. I could talk to you forever, but we do have to go, and we will schedule a part 2 in the next 10 days. I needed this, Anne. Thank you. I really do appreciate the time, and I appreciate just the relaxed atmosphere. Maybe I just allowed Casual Friday to leak a little bit into today, but
okay.
I regret nothing. Yeah.
I don't mind just having a chat anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little less pressure. I've had 1 or 2 guests call me afterwards and was like, James, I'm being told that it was a pretty good interview. That was exhausting. Please don't ever do that again. Right? Like, it wasn't like they weren't mad at the questions, but they were like, I don't mind answering that question, but that emotionally was, crazy. And
yeah. There is times when I get emotional, and that would be when I'm maybe talking about my kids. But on the whole, I honestly believe that the writing of my book has been so therapeutic that it's almost like I'm talking about someone else most of the time.
That's good. That indicates growth, right? Like from the person you're writing about. Yeah.
But if I talk about my kids and as individuals, then I sometimes do get emotional. Yeah.
See, I'm such a I'm like this with my kids. First of all, kids, daddy can do whatever he wants. Okay, that's the one rule. This and that, and I'd be like kidnapping my kids. I've escaped. Time to go gather the troops. I would just kidnap my kids.
I wish Yeah, I wish I could, I had this little thread. I'll just sort of finish on this, but I had this little thread of hope for a few weeks there. Somebody who had recently left give me my youngest son's contact. He's 21 now. And because they had changed all their numbers to block me and whatever. But I sent him a WhatsApp message.
Yep.
And it's probably actually over the last 6 months, I've sent him 3 messages. And I know he's read every one. And I've been able to see his profile photo. But I don't know why, for some reason, on Christmas Day, he blocked me.
Wow. That's like salt in a wound, right? Like it's because it's like, that's almost like you're celebrating blocking.
Have you
right?
got time for me just to read a message that he sent to somebody while they were still in? So my son was, he was 11 when I left. He's 21 now. And just quickly, my 2 youngest lived with me for 3 years. I got custody of them.
Oh, nice.
But then, anyway.
Yeah.
So this is what he said about me to somebody else. I think the hardest part for me was I am the baby, and she has always been my best friend. I'm a softie, so even when she was confined, I was still living with her. And she would come and sleep in my bed for comfort because she had cancer at that time. That was hard. I love her, and I know she loves me, but it's just torn. As I didn't want to leave her, but I couldn't live with her being against Mr. Hales.
Yeah, it's I couldn't be with anyone against Mr. Hales. Against Mr. Hales is
nothing about God, nothing about Jesus, nothing about the Bible, Mr. Hales.
But that's the thing. It reminded me of the phrase, well, the Bible says, and then everything that comes after that is like, that's 100% factual. Talking snake, right? Like and it reminds me of that. It's a throwaway phrase that blankets everything. It's like, oh, Bruce Hales. Oh, great point, Randy. Bruce Hales, right? And it has that power. And people revere him. And yeah. Well,
anyway. That's ending on a bit of a low there, but
well, that's not really a low. Fuck Bruce Hales. Yeah, that's a positive message.
Well, it was a positive for me because I didn't even think he would remember about those things. Like when I had cancer, he would say to me, "Mum, don't close your bedroom door. I won't close mine. If you need comfort in the night, come and get in bed with me." Oh. And I did. This is after
sense that you needed nurturing yourself, right? Because
he was 12 when I got cancer.
Yeah.
I'd been out of the Brethren just over a year.
Wow.
So anyway.
That's what we're going to open with at the next show is your family stuff. Because I avoided that on purpose just for today because it's not doing it a service unless I would like 90 minutes for that one if we could. Ann Hamilton, it's a pleasure to finally meet you face to face. I appreciate you coming, and we'll see you sometime in the next 10 days. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, James.
Thank you. I don't feel stressed. I don't feel like I'm not trying to okay, ignore your own memories. Repress, push down, and people weren't expecting that. And that's why I loved it. And I was told, after I was told what kind of personality, what kind of person Ann Hamilton was, that's what, that is what I decided to do. Because of all the things I said on the show, which is that it's nice not to sort of make somebody's personal brand entirely about them being a victim when they were younger. And so I think we owe it to them sometimes, not even to open with that. The opening for me for guests like this is that you're an ex-member of the PBCC. What is your unique story like? And and you can tell it on my show. And she's great. So and also she's 5'9", and I just think it's hilarious that she had to obey R.D. Ziff when she first got married. So that's weird. But I'm glad she's out now. She seems she's also very helpful to other ex-members, and I can't just say enough good things about Anne Hamilton. I have heinous cases this week, maybe, where we look at the Guy Palmeren case with Rob Kiblikin. I have on Wednesday Melissa Lauren. She is a jazz singer from Toronto who also happens to be a longtime friend. And do we have Tom Green? I don't know. You want to know why I don't know? Because I don't know yet. But there's something that might be happening, so that should be fun. And yeah, my thanks again to Anne Hamilton, and we will see you next time on Blackballed.
Blackballed.